If you're an expectant parent, or you've ever been one, you know that every little choice feels absolutely huge, and a scary health headline can really send you spinning. Today, we're going to untangle one of the most common anxieties out there.
And that brings us to a question that is so personal, it's genuinely scary, and it has been fueling headlines about one of the most common medicines on the entire planet.
So, where did all this anxiety even come from? Well, it all kicked off with this huge new study that, on the surface, seemed to confirm our worst fears.
Okay, so this study, led by Professor Lin at National Taiwan University, it wasn't just some random blog post, it was published in JAMA Pediatrics, which is a really big deal in the medical world. And this thing wasn't a small investigation, it was absolutely enormous.
I mean, just look at that number. The study analyzed data from over 2 million kids. When you see a number that massive, your first thought is, wow, okay, this has to be the final word on the subject, right?
So at first, the researchers took a pretty straightforward approach. They just looked at this massive group and compared kids whose mothers took acetaminophen during pregnancy with those who didn't. They were looking for any links to neurodevelopmental disorders. Simple enough.
And yikes, what they found seemed to confirm all those fears. Let's break down this hazard ratio thing. Think of 1.0 as no change in risk, but here they found a small but what scientists call statistically significant increase in the risk for both ADHD and autism. And this is the result that basically launched 1,000 scary headlines.
But here's the thing about good science. It's never about accepting the first easy answer. It's about digging deeper and asking, wait a minute, could something else be going on here? We need to become detectives and look for some hidden clues.
Okay, so these hidden clues are what researchers call confounding variables. Let me give you a classic example. Ice cream sales and shark attacks both shoot up in the summer. So does eating ice cream cause shark attacks? Of course not. The hidden clue, the confounder, is the hot weather. It makes people both buy ice cream and go swimming. And in medicine, these kinds of hidden clues are everywhere.
So what could our hidden clues be in this puzzle? Well, there's a bunch of possibilities. It could be shared genetics that might predispose a family to certain conditions. It could be the family environment. And here's a big one. What if it's the reason the mother took the medicine in the first place? We know a bad fever or a serious infection during pregnancy is a risk factor on its own.
Right. So this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth do you separate the effect of the medicine from all these other tangled-up clues? You can't just look at the big picture. You've got to get way smarter. And that is exactly what these researchers did next.
And this is where the study gets really, really clever. They used an amazing method to untangle this whole mess. Something we can call the sibling solution.
So why is this so brilliant? Well, think about it. Siblings automatically share a ton of stuff, about half their genes, and they grow up in a really similar environment, right? So, by comparing a sibling who was exposed to the medication in the womb to one who wasn't, you basically cancel out a lot of those big, messy, hidden clues. It's like comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges.
And here it is. This is the big reveal, the aha moment of the whole study. When this scientist ran the numbers again, but this time using that clever sibling comparison, the link completely disappeared. Poof, gone. The risk for both ADHD and ASD went right back to normal.
So what does that mean? It means that scary connection they saw in that first simple analysis was probably just an illusion. It wasn't the medicine causing the problem, it was all those other hidden genetic and environmental factors that the sibling comparison was able to account for.
Okay, so case closed, right? Well, not quite. And this is what I love about great science. The researchers weren't totally satisfied. They knew that even a powerful method like this one could have its own hidden problems, so they decided to push their data just one step further. To be super thorough, they ran one final test, something called a bidirectional analysis. Now, in simple terms, they basically looked at families where only the first kid was exposed and compared them to families where only the second kid was exposed. If the drug was the real culprit, you'd expect the result to be the same, right? It shouldn't matter if you're the first or second kid.
Yeah, that is not what they found. What they found was, frankly, bizarre. As you can see, when only the firstborn was exposed, the risk seemed to go up. But when only the secondborn was exposed, the risk actually appeared to go down. I mean, that makes zero biological sense. A medicine can't be both bad for you and good for you depending on your birth order.
So what on earth does a weird result like that tell us? It doesn't tell us if Panadol is good or bad,
What it tells us is that this research is incredibly complex. It's a huge warning sign that there are still hidden biases in the data that even the super clever sibling analysis couldn't totally fix. It's a real lesson in scientific humility and a warning not to jump to simple conclusions from a headline.
Okay, so after all that, the scary headline, the deep dive into the science, that puzzling final twist, what's the actual takeaway here? What does this mean for someone who's actually trying to make a decision?
Look, the final verdict, when you put it all together, is pretty clear. The best, most rigorous part of the study, that sibling analysis, showed no link. That initial scary connection, it was almost certainly an illusion created by all those hidden clues we talked about. And you know what? This lines up perfectly with what the big medical groups are saying. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, for example, is very clear. Their official stance is that the acetaminophen is still the go-to choice for pain and fever during pregnancy. Now, the key phrase, as always, is prudent use. That means taking the lowest dose that works for the shortest time you need it, and of course, talking to your doctor.
And that brings us to the real final takeaway from all of this. And honestly, it's the most important one. This whole story isn't just about one pill. It's about how we read and understand science in the news. So the next time you see one of those scary health headlines, I hope this makes you pause and ask the most powerful question you can. Don't just ask, what did they find? Ask, how did they find it? Because as we just saw, the answer to that second question is everything.